need a show of hands. Who here enjoys vacations? Okay, not so much. Okay. I'm just checking. I'm not judging. I'm just checking. And you think I'm not paying attention. I always pay attention. All right. Everybody likes vacations? Are you up for some travel? Great. Let's do some time travel. Let's go back. Let's go way, way back. Back before Jesus, back before Buddha, back before Krishna, back to prehistoric times. The times when you and I were hunter-gatherers, when we foraged for our food, or collectively brought down the occasional mastodon or brontosaurus. And can you picture yourself in a nicely trimmed bearskin? Or maybe a summerish palm leaf arrangement? You got the picture. Okay, so do I. In those earliest days, if one of us were to break our leg, we would likely be left behind, because the very survival of the community was dependent upon constant movement. And who knew back then how to fix a broken leg? It may have been hundreds or even thousands of years before one of those who had been left behind 6 weeks later catches up with the clan with a noticeable limp and a hefty scar, but a healed leg. And he said, "Hey guys, this thing still works. I think we can fix it." Well, those who got very sick at that same point in our development, they too were left behind. Until one day, an epiphany was born in the mind of the very first healer. And that individual realized that a cure was possible. And then those who got sick were no longer left behind. Menstruating women were at first not understood and therefore feared. And they were required to remain a goodly distance from the tribe until their bleeding had stopped. Now you may be sitting here thinking, but that was so long ago, when we were ignorant and savage. But let's come far forward in time. Right to here, America, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. Do you remember the use of the C word? As in, he or she has the big C. The big C. It was socially taboo to use the word cancer in public, as if the mere speaking of the word would bring it upon he or she who said it. Now today, we are much more open in speaking about cancer and other physical diseases. But there remains a huge stigma around the subject of mental illness, one of the most common forms of which is depression. Recent studies show that 1 in 4 Americans, 25% of our population, will experience major depression at some point in their lives. The rate of depression in our culture is now 10 times greater than it was just 2 generations ago. Depression touches virtually every family in our nation. It has touched my family. And at times it has affected me. not be so. It need not be so. We can reverse this trend. But we need to do it together, and we need to do it mindfully. In looking at this material, I think Jesus came to mind, and it occurred to me that Jesus wasn't depressed. He was often loving and healing, and sometimes stern, and even at other times angry, but he wasn't depressed. And I say this not because that he knew that he was a child of God, as we all are. He wasn't depressed in large part because of his lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that Dr. Stephen Ilardi has illustrated in his new book called The Depression Cure. And I've listed the title in your book. So let's look at what this lifestyle was. Well, first of all, if you want to follow along, I've got them listed. Why Jesus was not depressed on page 3 of your bulletin. First of all, he ate grass. He did. Now, I don't mean he just picked it up and ate it. Jesus ate grass-fed lamb and fish that were nourished on algae, and very possibly flax seeds. All of these are abundant sources of omega-3. Omega-3. Omega-3 is a fatty acid, and it has a very special and unique effect upon the body. It reduces our internal inflammation. There is a huge portion of our population who are affected now with internal inflammation, and they have no idea. No idea. Because we have learned how to cope with it and not even notice it. It is so very much internal, but it's very real, and it's there. And what omega-3 does is it reduces the inflammation in the body. Now, what happens if you don't reduce the inflammation in the body? That produces a chronic condition that decreases the production of tryptophan. And tryptophan is the primary building block of serotonin, which is known as the happiness hormone, even though it's not a hormone. But we can still be happy about it. Serotonin is that chemical in us that we produce very naturally when we properly feed ourselves. That produces that feel-good feeling, that sense of well-being. Who enjoys a sense of well-being? Okay, if your hand isn't up, please see me after service. I do spiritual counseling. And even if we're not feeling it, we want it. And when we have it, when you feel really good, know this: serotonin is pumping through your body and doing its thing. We are divine and we are physical. We are both. And we need to pay attention to the whole package. The whole package on every level of being, as our meditation so beautifully spoke to. The rates of depression in our society, as they've gone up, that increase has been mirrored by the disappearance of omega-3 from our diets. Because if you are an eater of meat, most of the meat you eat was fed on grain. And grain produces almost no omega-3s. Grass, yes. Grain, no. So what can we do about this? Both those of us who are carnivores and those of us who are vegetarians and vegans. Well, flaxseed oil, if you're vegetarian or vegan. Fish oil, if you want to make sure you're getting enough. And before you start taking fish oil supplements or flaxseed oil supplements, please consult your doctor. What did I say? Please consult your doctor. Yes, and I mean that. Because I'm not a doctor, I just play one sometimes in my own mind. Never on TV. Depression is such an incredible phenomenon, and I encounter it so very often that this is a little different kind of talk. I believe it's really important. It is so important for us to have this information, to acquire more information, and to share this information with one another. Number two, Jesus was a groupie. I told you I'd get to groupie. You were there. He was a groupie. He was always breaking bread and drinking wine with his friends or hanging out with the multitudes. He was connected. He was connected. His attention was always engaged with others. And when your attention is engaged with someone else, it doesn't leave a lot of room, a lot of time for rumination. Rumination is not a term that we hear a lot these days, but it happens a lot. What is it? Rumination is that condition wherein when you have nothing else to pay attention to, you focus on yourself. And what you do is you start to think about all those things you did wrong over and over and over and over. I did that wrong, and how could I have done it better? I'm not sure. And Dr. Millardi in his book writes that he believes we are hardwired to ruminate. Why? What would be the point of that? Well, the point has an evolutionary purpose. It's so that we can learn from our past mistakes. So we're hardwired to think about what we did wrong so that we maybe don't do it again. However, there's my mantra in life, which is balance. And when we lived in closer society as our ancestors did, there was balance because we lived in close connection with one another. There was limited time to gaze solely upon your own navel. You know, you had to go for a short walk for that, and you had to come back because you had a responsibility to the clan and the tribe. So there was natural balance built in so that rumination didn't take over entire evenings or days and take us out of balance and into depression. If you find yourself caught in the cycle of rumination, here is the way out. First, you have to identify. You have to go, okay, I'm thinking some things that are really bringing me down, and I'm doing it a lot. So the first thing you do is pay attention to your thoughts. And then you set up a game plan. I love to plan. I mean, there's nothing wrong with planning. Divine order is a plan. So the plan is this. You say, okay, I don't like these thoughts. So I'm going to check myself every hour, on the hour. You can set an alarm or something on your watch, or your cell phone. But every hour, you stop with the journal and you write down what your thoughts are. That makes sure that you're paying attention to what it is you're thinking. And then if you find yourself that those thoughts are not the thoughts you want to have, play some upbeat music, read a book on tape, or listen to a book on tape, read an engrossing book. In other words, get out of your mind. Find something to change your attention to, something that will lift you up. Do it decidedly. You don't have to suffer in silence. You can choose to do it. Plan your way out of depressive thoughts. Jesus, he walked a lot. Okay, I know, occasionally he rode a donkey. But that was only on special occasions, right? Normally, he walked everywhere. He got a lot of exercise all the time. Everybody got a lot of exercise. When you exercise, when you move your body, it naturally increases the production of serotonin and dopamine, the feel-good mood enhancers that our body produces simply by moving.